hello, hello. All right, all right, all right. David Washington, Angelina Rahman.
Hello.
This is You Can't Make This Shit Up. We are your political innovators here in beautiful Central Florida. We
Ooh,
are Jay in Washington. We
yes, we
are,
are.
again, your political innovators. I want to thank our producer, John D.
Woo!
Correa.
Go, John.
Go, John, of 7th Legion Multimedia.
Yes.
And today we're going to discuss recent news about the proposed Bentley's law. This is being proposed by Florida Representative Carolina Amnesty. I believe she represents House District 44, 45, I'm sorry, 44, 44. And it says if this is passed, drunk drivers who cause the death of a parent will be held responsible to pay child support to that person's children. This type of legislation originated in Missouri, but has made its way to Florida. The law not only discourages drunk driving, which I like, but makes the consequences for people's actions relevant with real world consequences. We're going to jump into it, Angelina.
Yes, so I am super excited. In fact, I am very proud of my party for emplacing such a law because I feel like the biggest criticism that we get is, oh, you guys are pro life until they're born. And I think that this is just a beautiful example of us just trying to show that no, we want to support the lives that's being brought into this world. But one thing that I love is that this law is actually holding people accountable for their actions. In fact, actually, the law actually states that so the child will be financially the person who injured or caused any kind of trauma. Oh my goodness.
It's okay. It's all right. It's House Bill 79 here in Florida if you want to check it out. However,
Yes. So they actually filed this legislation, and this is the direct quote from Amnesty herself. She said, I am honored to file this important legislation in Florida House. And so, what this bill is going to do, if you caused a parent, if you hit a parent and then you caused their death, you are responsible for taking care of that child, which I think is a beautiful law. So, this actually states that you will be financially responsible for the well being of that child until the age of 18.
mhm,
And the child support must be compensated. That includes the standard of living that the child was accustomed to.
that's key.
So, be careful because if you hit a millionaire's child,
Guess what?
whoo, you're responsible.
You're coming out of pocket.
Yes, exactly. So prior to using its parent or guardian. With this legislation, we hope to curtail the number of fatalities caused by drunk driving while holding drunk drivers accountable and supporting victims' families.
I like this legislation. I agree with real world action with real world consequences. Now let's take this a little further. Okay, so let's talk about gun violence. And so I was talking with a client of ours about possible legislation that could be proposed at the um, state legislature in regards to gun violence and what we as Floridians can do to stem the epidemic of gun violence, not just here in Florida, but in Illinois and New Mexico, New York, Idaho, Montana, California, whatever. And so, taking this example, why can't we have those who cause loss of life through the use of a gun to also face consequences similar to this? Say, there's a mass shooting. Say that a gun was used in the commission of a crime where someone lost their life. Why can't there be some type of compensation on top of all the other compensation, court fees and things like that, that particular person who used that weapon to cause death and compensate the members of that family.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And I believe that this bill is actually going to be the stepping stone for that, which I
Mhm.
think is a beautiful thing. So, for an example, say if you're a gun holder and you have a small child and you don't teach your children about gun safety, and God forbid, please, I'm not putting this on anybody, but if that child happens to pick up said gun and they use it either to harm themselves or other people, which most likely, if it's a child, they're going to be harming themselves, why shouldn't that person be held responsible?
Agreed. I agree. And as with drunk driving, um, there are consequences to our actions. You drink more than what you're supposed to. You get behind the wheel of a car. Consequences. You take a gun, you use it in a way that causes the death of someone else, whether it is in the commission of a crime, like a robbery or road rage or mass shooting. Well, those victims should be compensated. Those families, those children of those who were killed should be compensated likewise.
Absolutely.
Right.
I feel like the biggest issue with a lot of mass shootings is typically the killer ends up killing themselves. So I think that the biggest question to ask is, okay, in that regards, who should be held responsible, since that person can't technically face the punishment that they truly do deserve.
Well, some of the more recent mass shootings, I do understand that the ones that I understand that received a lot of publicity. Um, I believe, if I remember correctly, this is anecdotal, so don't we can always check with the CCP in regards to the gun violence studies that they've done instead of going to the new Office of Gun Violence established by the White House. That's a different story for another day. But the Chinese have also compiled these statistics for us, and it's readily available. My understanding is that 2 to 1. The mass shooters have turned themselves in, or they have what's what I'm looking for when they surrendered to law enforcement. It's been 2 to 1. Besides the mass shooter, killing themselves. So
Absolutely.
some of these school shootings are like that. I don't know. I don't know. I think this type of legislation, House Bill 79, will set the precedent for legislation in regards to addressing gun violence.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that's very important because, I mean, I'm a believer in the Second Amendment. I believe that you should have the right to protect yourself and your family. However, whenever guns are being placed in the hands of someone that is mentally unstable, that is whenever I feel like the Second Amendment gets a lot of scrutiny for it. And I believe that's not fair, right? But I think that in this case, we certainly do need to hold those people responsible. I was even proposing, but I feel like this may be even a little bit crueler to the families of um the mass shooter, because I know that they're going through a lot, but I think that in order for justice to be served, something needs to happen whenever the shooter decides to commit suicide during said action.
Here in Florida, we've scaled back restrictions on gun ownership, and now you don't need to be trained to handle a firearm. It's now you are able to have a firearm unlicensed or without a permit. And studies have shown, I believe, if I remember correctly, the Brookings Institute study has shown that gun violence increases by 23, 24% when these type of restrictions are pulled back. And so more opportunities for more shootings, more opportunities for violence. I believe we're heading in the wrong direction with that based on the statistics. Um, I also believe there should be even harsher consequences for someone who uses a gun to cause the death of someone else. And
So
this is a good start.
oh, yes, absolutely. But my biggest question to you is now, I mean, I do believe that we need to have stricter laws regarding gun restrictions. But my question is that most of the time, it's not the people that's legally getting the guns, it's people that's illegally getting the guns. So either like they're stealing them from someone or whatever. Who do you believe would be responsible in that instance?
I still think the person, let's say in Chicago, where I'm from, in the '80s, we had the crack cocaine epidemic, and we had gang wars, and AK-47s were common on the streets, and people were harmed, people were killed in gangs and things like that. Those guns were purchased and what's the term I'm thinking of? Straw purchases. They guns were certain types of firearms were illegal in the city. However, with its proximity to Indiana, we were able they were able to purchase straw purchases of vast amounts of guns, or several guns at one time, and bring them into the city. And so, despite having a ban for the good people, the bad people were bringing guns into the community from local jurisdictions. They should still be held accountable, even though those guns were purchased legally, but given to other people who should not have guns legally. It was illegal straw purchases, um, and caused the gang wars to be even more violent. There should be some type of compensation where someone who uses that gun find a way to compensate the families or the loved ones of the victims.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you on that one.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you.
So, actually, I do have a personal story with drunk driving. This actually happened within my family. And I feel like that's why I am so passionate about this
Okay.
because this is just something that's so important. And I believe that that is why I'm so anti alcohol. I used to drink back in high school. Once I turned 21, which is so funny, I stopped drinking. I will have an occasional glass here and there, but typically I don't drink. But what happened in my family was one of my cousins, she was killed by a drunk driver, her and her mother. And what makes it worse is that they were killed on that sister's 16th birthday. So the mother and her sister decided that they wanted to go out and get this daughter something special for her 16th birthday,
Right.
and they were killed by a drunk driver.
Oh, wow.
To make matters
Sorry.
worse is that this person actually was guilty of killing another child before this incident happened.
Wow.
And this person got basically a slap on the wrist. And they were like, okay, you can go back on the road. And so he ended up killing those two. And what makes matters even worse is that I believe that should be considered my great aunt. I've never met them, obviously, because this was way before I was even born. But
Okay.
um, she was never a drinker. You know, she hardly would even drink wine. And the drunk driver actually had the audacity of putting alcohol in her vehicle to make it seem as if she was the one who was drinking and driving.
Wow.
Yes.
What jurisdiction was this in? What state?
This was in Buffalo, New York.
Wow.
And this would have been taking place at around 1970s.
So this person was convicted before of drunk driving,
Yes. I believe that
or
they only had a sentence of about a couple of years,
okay.
and they killed a very small child. I believe that the oldest a child could have been was about 5.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and then he was able to go behind a wheel after doing that and kill 2 other people.
I don't know what to say. Wow. I mean, talk about facing consequences.
Mhm.
Sure, they may have
Or
served their
lack
time, but
thereof.
right. But I guess the argument against a Bentley law would be, well, if someone served their time, pay their fees, et cetera, here in Florida, you know, why should they still continue to compensate,
Right.
a victim's family if they've already paid their restitution to the state, to society? Um, in this particular instance, I know back in the '70s, the laws were not as restrictive as they are now.
Absolutely.
However, they could be a little bit more serious.
Absolutely.
That's unfortunate. I'm sorry.
no, you're all good. In fact, like I never met them, but that was just something that was just ingrained in me as a
Mhm.
child. And that's why my family, especially on my mom's side of the family, is completely against drunk driving. I feel like I wish that my dad's side of the family was a little bit more strict on that. I feel
Sure.
like with Caribbean folks, it's kind of like, "Oh yeah, drink, have fun." But I feel like we don't think about the consequences that could come about from doing that.
Good point. Very good point.
But my argument to those who oppose this law is no matter how much amount of time you may have served, how much you may have paid, you still cannot bring back those loved ones. It doesn't matter if you caused only one life or whatever. You still can't bring that person back. And I think that even though that this law obviously can't bring the person back, this is helping towards avoiding others losing their loved ones.
I agree. I agree with that. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Your final thought?
My final thought is Republicans, this is exactly on the right foot. And I don't want to make this a right or a left issue because this should be something that we can meet in the middle for.
Sure.
But I'm really happy that we have this law and I really hope that hopefully both sides of the alley can actually at least agree on this and actually use this for future legislation. From what I know, that this is not implied or this is not actually being passed in blue states, which I find a little bit strange. But I'm hoping one of these days maybe we can actually make it a national law as opposed to a state level law.
Sure. There could be some issues with impeding on returned citizens' freedoms. Again, if they pay their debt to society,
Right.
paying until someone is 18 years old, if they've already paid their debt to society, I have to emphasize that. And have they really truly been released from their term of service or their actual conviction or the term of their convictions
Absolutely.
conviction. So, all right.
And I understand that people can change, but I believe that this is the right step towards the right direction.
I
All
like
right.
it.
Well, with that, please like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Ring that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Comment.
Yes, comment. We want to hear from you guys.
Let's engage in commentary. Join the community.
Mhm.
Thanks.
All right.